Red Bull with a massive upgrade. It's safe to say that Red Bull is currently in a league of its own, especially if we speak about Verstappen. The Dutchman has been able to win 4 races in a row, and after the dominant performance in Zandvoort, he is looking forward to continuing this streak to 5 and marching towards breaking the record of 13 wins in a season set by Vettel in Red Bull and Schumacher in Ferrari. However, Verstappen's speed has been accompanied by the design of the RB18, which, judging by F1 experts, is truly a marvelous piece of engineering. Well, what less can you expect from Adrian Newey, the most brilliant mind in F1 as we speak? With that being said, let's dive deep into what the next huge upgrade from Red Bull will be in the upcoming period, as the team isn't done upgrading the space rocket ship they currently have. Verstappen has been able to dominate the F1 sport over the last races, and that has been truly emphasized in Belgium. Although he was dominant at his home track too, Spa was something that we were truly amazed to see. He was able to grab the lead at lap 12 after starting P14 on the grid, and was able to lead the race comfortably after, ahead of his teammate Perez, who finished 17 seconds behind Max for P2. But the fact that he's so far away from Max, and the fact that he wasn't as dominant as we'd expect from a Red Bull car in Zandvoort, only adds volume to Verstappen's season so far. Many experts have said that the biggest weapon Red Bull currently has is Max Verstappen, along with, "This is the best I've seen Max drive, I think, at the moment. I think he's getting more and more complete, and that is a scary thing. The sport doesn't need another repetition of 2014 to 2020, where Mercedes dominated on every possible outcome, but it's sure nice to see someone else taking the reign for a change." Although Red Bull has been more than dominant in the races that passed by, it seems like the team is far away from done when it comes to upgrading their car. They are the only team on the grid that hasn't suffered from the porpoising phenomenon thanks to the genius mind of Adrian Newey, which allowed them to spend more money on reducing weight from the RB18 and making it more agile in the low, medium and high-speed corners. When the season started, Red Bull had a massive advantage in the main straights, and we were able to see that recently in Spa and in Miami, where Verstappen was 20 to 30 kilometers quicker than his competition. However, they lacked a lot in the low downforce sections, which is something that Ferrari was able to utilize in their own favor. But the low downforce sector in Spa, which is the second one, has been dominated utterly by Verstappen this season, as he was quicker than both Ferrari drivers. This is truly disturbing for the Italian team, given the fact that they hoped these kinds of races would suit them more compared to Red Bull. What's even scarier is the fact that during the Spa GP, we saw an implementation of a new technical directive, or TD. This TD was supposed to aim for the flexibility of the floors, which according to Mercedes were very much circumvented by Ferrari and Red Bull. Therefore, the plank wear that was allowed to wear as much as 2 millimeters is now measured throughout its whole length, and not just in 3 pinpoints as it was previously. But that only saw Red Bull being much faster. In fact, they were 1.8 and 2.0 seconds faster than Hamilton and Russell respectively during the qualifying session in Spa. During the Dutch GP, although the Mercedes drivers were closer in the qualifying session, they were no match for Verstappen during the race. What was even more impressive for Red Bull is that the upgrades they brought to the Spa GP made Verstappen run with a lower amount of downforce, which helped him gain around 0.4 of a second advantage over his competition. This way, Verstappen is able to balance the car better in the corners, but has to give up a bit of top speed in the main straights, which he usually covers up by opening the DRS. Particularly through Poon and in the approach to Stavolo, Verstappen was able to create a huge difference between him and the rest of the pack, which is why he was untouchable at the top. But the team feels like this wasn't enough, and although everybody speculated that the team has already brought the much expected upgrade to Spa, the team denied that they installed the new monocoque that is supposed to be installed prior to the Singapore GP. But what is it, and how does it affect the performance of the car? Continue watching to find out. Red Bull was one of the cars that struggled a lot with its weight. It has been one of the heaviest cars on the grid, around 8 kilograms more than the minimum weight of 792 kilograms. However, the team has worked hard on tackling this problem, and according to Max Verstappen, the car is not performing really well on Saturdays, but is truly a beast on Sundays. This is why Red Bull needed to address this problem, and a huge step towards that would be the implementation of the new monocoque that was designed by Adrian Newey. So, what is it? In practice, the new monocoque will make the RB18 lighter by around 5 kilograms, which is very much near the minimum weight of 792 kilograms. It will make it even less heavy than the Ferrari's car, but what is the secret behind this masterpiece, and how did Red Bull manage to pull it off with the budget cap seriously affecting the spending of an F1 team? First, the terms of design weren't affected when the new monocoque was built, but only the cross-ply of the different layers of carbon fiber. By placing the fibers in a different orientation, the same stiffness and strength values as the previous version could be obtained, but with a reduced thickness in many places of the chassis. Therefore, the new chassis is significantly lighter and allows the car to lose some much-needed weight. At its core is a thorough and extensive analysis through the use of finite elements tools, with software that virtually evaluates the stresses by dividing the body into several actions. This makes it possible to simulate the resistance of the structure and its stiffness as the structure varies. The focus here is on the orientation of the fibers of the different carbon layers. What a masterpiece, huh? But according to Mattia Binotto, he doesn't understand how the team managed to find the source to build this kind of chassis, and he also pointed out that if it was for Ferrari, they would have never done that with these financial restrictions. As he added, "I myself have no idea what they are doing, whether they have a lighter chassis or not. But the budget cap is always a concern. In addition to technical and sporting regulations, we also have to deal with financial regulations, and that can also cause differences between the teams, purely by how those regulations are interpreted. We need a strong FIA who is on top of this, because otherwise those rules are not fair and equal for everyone. But as I said, I can't judge Red Bull's lighter chassis and whether they have it or not, but I do know that Ferrari couldn't do that because of the budget cap," said Binotto, who continued to speak about other teams' possibility to do what Red Bull has done, adding, "I would be very surprised if another team turns out to be able to do that. And if it is, then we come back to the regulations. Are they fair enough? Do they see equal enough for everyone? And is it adequately monitored? These are big question marks. The rules are still very new and are only checked by a small number of people, so that has to be improved with a view to the future. It would be a bad thing if the championship is determined by financial regulations and not through a technological battle," finished Binotto. However, according to sources close to the team, Red Bull used half of the money that was given to every F1 team in a battle to tackle inflation that surpassed 3%. Therefore, every F1 team was granted $4 million, and according to reports, Red Bull used $2 million to build 2 of these chassis. As we mentioned earlier in this video, Red Bull is going to mount both of them during the Singapore GP, which comes after the 3-week break after the Monza GP. What do you think about Red Bull's newest upgrade? Let us know in the comments below.